Spring is a magical time of year in Paducah, Kentucky, Quilt City, USA. Adding to the wonderment and beauty of nature's reawakening is the equally breathtaking sight of quilts of all types and description at the American Quilter Society National Show and Contest. The theme of the AQS's 8th National Show and Contest was windows, and to those who attended the 1992 show, the quilts on display were truly a window to the world of quilting.
It's not a guy, it's a woman. She's laying on the slabs.
The guy on with the red. It's a girl.
It's a girl. She's pushing the guy in the wheelchair, and see that, and the body is sinking down into the lake. Watch it on Thursday night.
And the wine, you guys, look. The wine. Oh, don't drink the wine. It's poison.
Claudia Edmonds of Huntington, West Virginia, unravels the enigma of her Ginger Workmanship Award-winning quilt, appropriately titled Mystery.
I really started it about 6 years ago, and I just love Mystery Theater and the theme, the music, and Edward Gorey's drawings, and that's why I started on it. And I like with the gray, working with grays and blacks, and it's all quilted in black thread. And there is a few color spots in each block. I taped the program, and then I put it on stop, took Polaroids, and then put it on graph paper. And then I turned it into my pictures that way. Then I started quilting on it a year in January. So it was over a year and 3 months in quilting. I just finished it in time for the show. Well, I did this block twice. The first one, I thought she was a little bit too long, so I had to redo this. This is the top of a fence that goes around. This is an insane asylum, from what I can figure out from his books. So I had to cut her down. I quilted this once and didn't like it, so I had to take it all out and redo it. When I got the quilt completely finished, I decided to add a red herring. The first one, my husband said looked like a cardinal, so I had to take it off and redo that. I did add this, the little black thing up there. It's either a bat or it could be this guy's umbrella taken away by the wind. And I had a hard time finding fabric that looked like rain, so I finally just used this fabric that I had already used down here.
I think you said a few people had mentioned to you that they found this quilt kind of depressing.
Yes, they look at it and they don't have any idea what it's about, and they say, gee, that is really a depressing quilt. But then the people who are looking at it smiling, I know they know Mystery Theater, and they think it's funny, you know.
My quilt has rainbow colors in it, has all types of colors. It has a grid design where each line is a different color, red, blue, green, etc. And then I have ribbons in the sheer colors wrapped around it using variegated metallic threads as well as solid metallics, and then variegated rayons on top of that. So even though they're the same color family, they will be different shades and tones and tints of those colors. It's based on 2-inch squares as far as the grid design, and then the ribbons are freeform ribbon shapes that I've drawn freehand on top of the quilt. I have a stitching technique that is based on machine embroidery using metallic threads and rayon threads that gives a sheer effect that is stitching rather than fabric. So that's why it is in other techniques.
It's flying geese. It's going north and south, I think they call it, and it's all scraps, 300 or 400 different scraps, and extensively quilted with feather quilting and diagonal background quilting. And I love scrap quilts. They're my favorite kind, and I've been collecting scraps for years. and that was just a good pattern to use.
Really, I make it just for me. It's my quilt. I didn't really make it in order to win a prize. I just wanted to get it out. It's on heraldry, European heraldry, and it has all different heraldic symbols, all grand and glorious, powerful colours. I am turned on by that sort of thing. The heraldry, you know, was used in Europe during from the 11th century to about the 16th century. And there's some grand and glorious stuff in that, the mythological creatures that are used in the heraldic symbols, etc. And that's just the sort of thing that turns me on.
It's magnificent. It's magnificent.
There's a lot of work right there. Sure is.
If you look at the number of stitches per inch, she's probably got 15 to 18, maybe even 20. They're just beautiful. And they're also even. I'd take it home with me.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Oh, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I wish I could do it.
So do I. It's magnificent. Quite magnificent.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's just wonderful.
It's beautiful. I've never seen quilting that took my breath away like that. It's beautiful.
These comments only begin to describe the beauty of this year's Best of Show quilt, Mama's Garden by Ann Oliver of Alexandria, Virginia.
The name I chose was Mama's Garden. It is an adaptation of a counterpane owned by the Mennonites in Dayton, Virginia. The quilt came about from a design from the counterpane was Mama's heirloom, and it's an old quilt that the Mennonites decided to draft into a quilt pattern. They simplified the counterpane designs, enlarged them, and I had seen the original, and it was quite ornate. And the pattern was meant to be a pattern that you might select to have marked by the Mennonites. And as a white quilter who designs her own quilts, I realized that you miss color when you're doing white work. The absence of color is difficult, but when you have all the beautiful fabrics available now, and each year they get more and more and more colorful and full of design, I felt that I had to do something to make me finish the quilt. So I superimposed colored appliques over the designs that were there, covered the design, the pencil lines, and found that because I had color, it was very easy to finish the whole quilt quite rapidly. It took about 8 months. About 6.5 months of that was quilting, and there were no gaps, really. It was very easy to finish because I still had my white on white. I had my applique, so I got the best of both worlds. It was a nice way to finish the quilt. And honored that the quilt is going to be in the museum. I couldn't find a better home. Absolutely not a better home. It's as though my child is gone from me, but it's found its home, and I can say goodbye tomorrow, or I will leave to my Sunday morning, and I have said goodbye, and with a few tears, but thrilled to pieces that it's here, and I will come visit.
Anne has this advice for all quilters.
To finish at all costs, regardless of whether anyone tells you your quilt is good or bad. Finish simply because each time you do a quilt, you will be more experienced. And putting in a show will give you a little bit more prestige, a little bit more self-esteem. Bite off more than you can chew if necessary, if you feel you can handle it. Make as many mistakes as possible. And in my first quilt, if I were to count, I probably have 50 mistakes. When you look at it as a whole, no one sees those mistakes. I know they're there, and I will point them out to you as an incentive for you when you've made your 49 mistakes, that no one sees them anyway. The finished quilt hanging up in a show is, even that first quilt is an inspiration for somebody. And also, it's the greatest self-esteem builder there possibly is.
The excitement surrounding the activities at the quilt show reaches a fever pitch during the AQS Hobbs Bonded Fibers Fashion Show. A perennial favorite, played out in front of a standing room only crowd, the fashion show allows fiber artists to really strut their stuff.
First place in the Hobbs American Quilt Society show for 1992. Faye Anderson, Denver, Colorado, Applied Special FX.
Well, there are many pieces to it. The outer jacket, vest, slacks, blouse, and also the handbag. And the idea that triggered the whole ensemble was a class that I was putting together called Applied Special Effects. And it's just little things that you can do on the surface of a garment and different kinds of embellishment, like the little rolls of fabric, stuffed rolls, and fringe using ultra suede buttons. I have created the fringe that's on the edge here, as well as the curved bands that are here, and all of those are done with a tool called a fast turn, where you make biased tubes with all types of fabric and all different widths. And also these little stuffed gumdrops that are on the vest, as well as applique and a variety of different kinds of embellishments, doodads.
Well, it was a really difficult job. They were all really wonderful. There weren't any losers in the lot. They were really all winners. They were all very wearable this year. In other years, we've had some pieces that were more like costume, and we've had some evening wear and long gowns. This year, they were all very wearable, sort of streetwear kind of garments, and it was really difficult picking the top 10.
Tell us about the winner and what you liked about it.
This garment was absolutely beautiful inside and out, and of course we had a chance to handle it and look at the inside and look at the finishing and look at the stitching and look at all the little details, which didn't necessarily show on the runway, and it's too bad people couldn't see it closer up, because it was a truly beautiful garment. Everything about it was really quality. Beautiful materials. Faye had obviously collected little artifacts from all over the world and included them in her garment. The finishing details were perfect. Even the facings on the inside of the collar of the blouse were just perfect.
My quilt is an Indian figure. It's a winged figure with an Indian face and headdress, and I got the idea for it by reading a book about an Indian artist by the name of Helen Hardin. And I loved her work, and I wanted to try and represent the feel of her work in a quilt. So that's what gave me the idea. Well, I've never seen a design quite like it. I try to do designs that don't look like anyone else's. I hope people like it. I do.
It's a mural of a farm scenes, houses and barns, and as it rises up into the distance, it fades off into fog. And then you have a glorious sunrise coming up over the top. The idea is the sunrise is burning off the fog, and you see some things clearly and some things not so clearly. I'm not sure just where it came from, a combination of things I've seen, but it's my parents' farm, my grandparents' farm, and I was doing the quilt for a commission for some friends, and they wanted something New England, but they were really from the Midwest, and I changed it to a Midwest orientation instead of the New England. And it just seemed to want to be born once I got started. I couldn't leave it alone. I was possessed.
And so another quilt show comes to a close. The assembled quilt lovers fan out across the world as they travel home, weary yet exhilarated, charged with an excitement for quilts and quilting, as well as a personal conviction to challenge themselves to reach greater heights in their own quilt making. Next year, we'll bring new discoveries and new challenges to those who attend the AQS show and contest. But for the next 12 months, they will relive the friendships made and the skills learned in classes and workshops until they once again make their annual pilgrimage to Paducah, Kentucky. Quilt City, USA.